My name is Caden Sullivan, and this is my presentation on the Ansel Adams Gallery. It is a photo gallery located in Yosemite National Park. They display and sell nature photos only, which is one of the few of its kind. And all of the photography there is by skilled nature photographers, as well as Ansel Adams himself, who was a really influential one in the 20th century. And they offer classes and tours of Yosemite for nature photographers. The tours are called camera walks, and they take you to all the spots that are really beautiful to photograph. So what they're doing here, more than just selling and showcasing artwork, is creating kind of a community and hub for nature photographers, which doesn't really exist outside of this gallery for the most part. And their website says, the Ansel Adams Gallery strives to cultivate an aesthetic appreciation and concern for our world by offering visitors a unique variety of books, handcrafts, fine arts, and an extraordinary collection of Ansel Adams original photographs. So above selling and showcasing artwork, they're also trying to get visitors to feel more connected and concerned for the world around them, which kind of reaches some of the goals that we've talked about in this class. Ansel Adams himself was a nature photographer. He was born in San Francisco and lived from 1902 to 1984. I would say his career spanned from about 1918 to probably the late 70s when he was done taking photos. He worked tirelessly, and although he was most famous for his photography, he was also an outspoken environmentalist and considered himself a lecturer writer as well. So it's sad because when you hear Ansel Adams, you usually think and I think that's kind of sad because when you hear of Ansel Adams, you think of his photography and the national parks and stuff, but he also did writing and lecturing, which I think is really cool because he cared that much. And there's a mountain named after him in the Sierra Nevada because of all of his work for the country. The country went ahead and named Mount Ansel Adams after him. And he did most of his assignments for the National Park Service as well as large companies which would pay him for his career. So Kodak, Fuji, big companies would hire him just to take pictures for them on their cameras to create sample images and whatnot. And the gallery's history goes all the way back to the year Ansel was born. So before he ever even picked up a camera, H.C. Best was a landscape painter who moved out to Yosemite with his wife and opened this studio called Best Studio, where he would paint the natural landscapes of Yosemite, showcase them, and sell them. And when Ansel Adams started going to Yosemite, he became friends with the Bests and created kind of a business relationship between them where he would bring them photographs either to copy in their landscapes or to sell and showcase for him. And they became really close in that way. So the Best family and Ansel Adams were close. In 1937, H.C. Best passes away. The studio goes to his wife. She passes away in 1971. And the ownership then goes to Ansel Adams and his estate because he was so close with the Bests that he was kind of the only one to inherit the gallery. So that's when it became the Ansel Adams Gallery, although it always kept the same mission and vision of bringing people closer to nature and immersing them further into the environment. So although it's changed from painting to photos and names have changed, it's always kept since 1902 that same mission to preserve and capture the natural landscape. And my first reaction to finding out about this gallery is that it gives a sense of place to a skill that doesn't have one. So any group of people who have a common goal, whether you're talking about nature photographers, worshippers, students, etc., need a place to go because that's where they all commune together and that's the place they use to try to pursue their goal. So you see churches with worshippers, you see schools with students, art galleries for artists. This creates a central hub for nature photography, which is already really important for environmental awareness because nature photos are used in all sorts of ways to compel people to environmental issues. So this kind of creates a little school for nature photographers almost. Although the lessons cost money, although the artwork is super high priced and getting exhibited there is actually kind of difficult, I think it's a first step to creating a community among nature photographers. And when I tried looking for other nature photography galleries, it was really hard, even around the whole country. I just found the Mangelsson Images of Nature Gallery, which has 4 locations, the National Museum of Wildlife Art, which is only in Jackson, Wyoming, and various smaller ones, but most of them are just individual photographers showcasing their own work. So it doesn't really provide the gallery experience for nature photographers because it's just individual people showcasing their own work. Nature photography is important for 2 main reasons in my opinion, but we'll go into those. First, I just want to share these quotes. One by Ansel Adams: "When words become unclear, I shall focus with photographs. When images become inadequate, I shall be content with silence." So what he's saying is that photographs can kind of settle debates because they can expose the truth. And if the truth is ever so misconsidered that photographs don't matter, Ansel Adams said he really didn't care to live in that world anymore. And a quote by William Shakespeare: "One touch of nature makes the whole world kin." I think this quote shows that nature photography is important because you're bringing people closer to nature and making them feel more connected with that biological instinct they have toward it already. So I think it's kind of unlocking feelings that people have hidden inside of them when you show them photos of nature. And people who grow up in urban environments or don't go into nature may only be exposed to the wilderness through photographs, and they also have the ability to send a message and reveal things that people do not regularly see in their lives. So the first photo is of the BP oil spill, and that's a pelican covered in oil. This image would have never reached our minds if the photographer had not published it. The next one is a factory farm, which I think is a great example of why nature photography is important, because photographers who have gone into factory farms have published pictures of animals that have changed everybody's perspective. And Planet Earth is just kind of this other way to bring people closer to nature, where you just show them the beauty, innocence, and purity of it, and then it compels them to care more in their own life. And the real community for nature photography, besides this gallery, is mostly the internet, because nature photography is kind of a niche skill and it doesn't make a lot of money, so there aren't a lot of galleries for it, and there's not a lot of places where all these people can get together, especially because they're kind of scattered throughout the country. So most of it is like Reddit, Instagram, and Twitter, where people are just posting and sharing work with each other, but the successful photographers do get to sell their work online. And some sites like Nature Picture Library offer the gallery experience for photographers, but on an online gallery. So, like I said, it's sad because it's such a valuable skill to the environmental movement, but it doesn't make much money and it's hard to get your work out there. So these nature photography galleries don't exist, which is why the Ansel Adams Gallery is so important. So there are 2 main ways, in my opinion, to inspire change through nature photography, and I brought a photo for each one of those. The first one is exposing environmental injustice through photographing crisis. This could be pictures like that seahorse one, where you're taking pictures of trash in the ocean, BP oil spill, severe agricultural pollution, runoff pollution. When photographers take pictures of something that people assume isn't happening, it flips their perspective and makes them angry or outraged, or gives them the urgency to do something about it. The other way is by revealing the purity and beauty of nature and encouraging the necessity to preserve it. So like the bottom photo with the meerkats, some photos are supposed to show how pure nature is and how beautiful it is, just so that when people see it, they realize what is out there that they don't normally see and feel more compelled to protect it. So one way is a little bit more with a sense of urgency and saying do something about this, while the other way is just showing the beauty of nature and talking about how important it is. And 2 quotes from the Bible that kind of hold up with these reasons is Ephesians 5:11, that says, "Take no part in the unfruitful works of darkness, but instead expose them." So that goes with the first meaning. And the second meaning is matched up in the Bible by Philippians 4:8, when it says, "Finally, brothers, whatever is true, whatever is honorable, whatever is just, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is commendable, If there is any excellence, if there is anything worthy of praise, think about these things. So it kind of just says, hold beauty to a high standard and remember what is pure and keep that in your heart. And since we're speaking as theologians in this class, it's important to talk about what this means theologically. I think for community and value in nature photography, this gallery encourages it. It gives a place for people to sell their photos as well as meet other photographers and expand their skill set. And more centers like this one should exist to make the community even bigger, because this skill is valuable for awareness, education, recreation in nature, and expressing the beauty and purity of nature and the need to preserve it. And a quote from the Bible that kind of expresses this need we have to care about our environment is from Genesis 1:26, when it says, "Let us make man in our image, after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the heavens, and over the livestock, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps on the earth." So when we think about this quote in looking at the Ansel Adams Gallery, we can see how the people there are doing work that appreciates the earth and shows love for God's greatest gift, which is the land we live on. And another way that this gallery ties into our class is its aspect of outreach and how that plays into public theology. Some of the goals of public theology are to be of service to the planet, confront issues that seem intractable in a fearless way, use our best tools to tackle those issues, and create discourses, creative works, educational opportunities that advocate publicly and forcefully through the lens of faith. So some of the goals of this gallery and nature photography in general are very similar to the goals of public theology, because in my opinion, the goals of nature photography are to bring nature to people who are not there and compel them to care about that environment in one way or another. And the Ansel Adams Gallery, though it is somewhat limited due to style, price, and availability, displays photographic artwork depicting natural landscapes. When people see and feel compelled by these photos, they're more likely to feel a concern or care for the environment. It's enriched by the history of Ansel Adams himself, and it's promoting environmental artwork in the heart of Yosemite. So I've kind of gone over these throughout the presentation, but I do want to address my criticisms of the gallery. I think the original artwork there is really expensive. The exhibition of an artist's photos there is not easy, and the classes and tours cost money. So it's very profit driven, which makes it not very community driven, although it is still the only place that exists like this, and I think it is a good first step for photographers and studios to create environments like this that are more affordable and more collaborative. And I also think the location in Yosemite, while it's important because it enriches it with the history of H.C. Best and Ansel Adams' career, but the visitors who go there are already probably in favor of the environment because they're at Yosemite National Park. So it engages them on another level with the park, but I think that it could maybe maximize potential in an urban environment. And I also think the artwork there is meant to fit in with his style, so many beautiful photos never actually make it there. But overall, like I said, it's really the only place that exists like this, and I think it's a good first step. So it sets an example. So I just want to do a section at the end where I show Ansel Adams' photographs. He had a real knack for mountains, so most of them are of mountain landscapes, but they're all taken around the U.S. in various national parks and wildernesses. And this was such a turning point in American history too, when we were trying to industrialize and head west. So a lot of these landscapes are actually developed over now, but he documented them. And this one I really like, so I gave it its own slide. It's just a flower, but it doesn't match his other photos. It's very unique, and I think that it's just shot very beautifully. And I believe he used large format film on most of these photos. And for these photos, I felt it was important to give the name of the one on the right because it highlights the importance of his work, especially for the time period. This one's called the Golden Gate Before the Bridge, and it's what the San Francisco Bay looked like before the Golden Gate Bridge was built over it. And that kind of shows how meaningful his work was for the country, especially. And here's the gallery itself. You can see it's very small, but it's a cute little gallery. and most of the photos look like Ansel Adams. And thanks for watching my presentation, guys. This is the Ansel Adams Gallery.